I don't even know where to begin. I have so many problems with this movie. I'm just going to start talking about elements of this movie where I was like, what the fuck? The first one off the top of my head, and I think the first point at which I was like, this is the stupidest shit I've ever seen, and I don't like this character. I'm not rooting for her. She's too stupid for me to enjoy or for her own good in the world of this in the universe of this world. She's a trained assassin. Now, look, I understand I'm not a trained assassin, and I don't necessarily know how they operate. I only see them in fiction, but you figure Grosse Point Blank being a really good example of how trained assassins operate in the shadows. They create instances where they can do their dirty work, be unseen, and leave everybody wondering in the mystery of how did this happen? And this idiot, in her first mission, as a trained assassin, sees a gang of Asian suited men.
And one woman.
And who cares? And then it goes up to this diminutive, pink-haired, modern gal. And they say, you will come with us, modern gal, because we have 5 large men and 1 woman. And we outnumber you, and we're big and strong, and you have no choice. And Anna de Armas, being a trained assassin to operate in the shadows, runs up to them and essentially goes, hiya. Like, you have to understand why this is a problem. This is a writing structural problem here, people. You must understand. We are not just bitching about this movie because it didn't tickle our fancy. You may like this movie if you want. I'm not saying you shouldn't like this movie. I don't particularly care one way or the other, but you have to understand there is consistent writing and then there is inconsistent writing. And in a scene or two before that, as Robert mentioned in the plot synopsis, they told her, you are a small woman with dainty bird bones. You are never going to win in a fight against a man who is trained, of equal or greater size, of which most men are. You're like 3 feet tall.
She's not the chick from Brave New World who only goes up to your hip, like the size of your daughter.
Anywho, my point is, they told her, fight like a girl, cheat, change the terms. And this idiot, this toaster oven, decides to charge headlong into a gang of trained Asian assassins like me when I used to play D&D. And my nickname was Bait McTrapspringer. And then she proceeds to go into a 5-on-1 fight with these people. And yeah, she gets this is the only thing that saves this is that she takes a bit of a beating, but you also have to believe she's got the super soldier serum in order to get through this.
She has to have a superhuman level of resilience.
She has to have a spine made of adamantium.
Or rubber.
Yeah, either way. She gets banged around a lot in that scene and, kicked from pillar to post. And, not a missing tooth, not a black eye. If she takes any damage, it's because she was stabbed at some point. And even then, she just kind of walks it off. But my real problem is that that's how she chose to handle it. I already don't believe the world that we're in. Because again, what made John Wick was he had built up a reputation for being a violent murderer. Even in the world of assassins, he was a bit much. And so by the time we meet John Wick post-retirement, the legend of John Wick had lived on and was scaring the piss out of people. We never got to see John Wick operate, though, as the assassin. We only got to see him operate as the vengeance-seeking Baba Yaga.
And then as the guy desperate to get out of the life again, to regain his soul.
So him rushing headlong into an army of goons made some degree of sense. He was reacting to the world around him. He wasn't on a mission.
Even then, when he saw that many guys in close proximity, he did not go up to them and go, I am John Wick.
You may stand aside. Prepare to die.
Yeah, there's ways to do this intelligently, and
And this
yeah,
wasn't it. And
yeah.
that's my point. Don't tell me you're a secret society of assassins and nobody acts like an assassin. She acted like an idiot, is what she did. There's no way someone this stupid would be allowed to go in the field. You risk ruining the reputation of this group. The word of this story gets out, who takes the Ruska, whatever the fuck they're called, seriously anymore? They're sending dainty girls in to rush five guys, and she maybe gets out of it alive because of plot armor. Fuck this movie.
There's a scene, her next mission when she's collected the contract for killing a guy, and then we do the bit where she walks out through all the bodies she's left behind. That's been done better. I don't think it's been done better. There's several times it's been done better. Jason Statham's introduction in the Fast franchise,
Right.
when he's like murdered everyone in the hospital to get to his brother. John Bernthal's reintroduction in The Accountant 2. He's talking with a girl, gets a call from Ben Affleck. They talk, and then he leaves. And as he leaves, this woman is terrified of him. And he goes, "Why are you asking me not to hurt you? What have I done that would give you any indication that I would hurt you? Come on, knock that off." And then as he walks out, we see, bodies, lots of bodies.
Right. So
hang on. She's
yeah.
done this in an upstairs room because she gets into an elevator and goes downstairs where there's a normal nightclub. Okay.
Yeah, I have to talk about this. So finish up because I have to also talk about more. There's so much wrong in this scene. It drove me crazy. And this is the downfall of this movie.
Then she walks out of the club to her car where there is another vehicle turned over. And she has rammed her car into somebody and pinned him to the wall. He is dead. You expect me to believe that this nightclub would continue operating normally after a giant auto accident on the outside, including fatalities, and then whatever happened upstairs. Like, this is the middle of the Oreo cookie that just gets to ignore everything around it?
What's funny about that is you're going into the second thing. The first thing is that, again, we're in this really fun nightclub that's made of, elements of Hoth. And again, are we in the part of the world where police don't exist?
Probably.
I want to say, people are just like, "But why are you guys?" Because you established a world that operated one way and completely created a scene that is a fiction in that world. You must remain consistent to the rules you've established in the world you're making your story exist in. Otherwise, you're just dealing with crap.
There's a word for this. It's verisimilitude.
So, again, dainty girl challenges group of Asian men. They proceed to have a wildly destructive fist fight.
No security in this high-end nightclub, by the way. That
includes gunplay. Listen, I've seen people get thrown out of dance clubs I've been to for being loud. Okay? You got a little too uppity, and they asked you to leave. I mean, my God, there's an entire movie based on the premise of, you cannot act up in the bar. It was called Roadhouse.
It's a really good movie, not the remake.
Which is more believable than Ballerina. So anyway, yes. So
that movie has Terry Funk.
Yeah. So moving on from this, we'll be here for 8 hours. That was the part. The movie started to lose me at that point, but I was like, all right, this is already stupid. But I'll deal with it. We've already gone against her training. We've gone against the world, but maybe they'll pull out of this and this will get better. Maybe this will slow down. Maybe she's learned. Maybe she's just an idiot when this starts, but she becomes competent over time, and that's her arc.
Would have been a better arc.
Then we have the story itself, which is, I'm fine. I've agreed to be an assassin. I'm doing assassin things, and aren't I a beautiful assassin girl? And then the thing happens with it. They don't explain why.
Yeah, how did that guy get? Because he T-bones her car, and we get another fist fight.
Right. They were gunning for her, I guess. And we never get an explanation as to why they're trying to kill her. What that whole entire scene was about prior to this happening that required them to come along and kill her. It's never explained. So then she's like, okay, these people tried to kill me, and I remember this. This is from when I was a kid. Explain it to me. And she was like, no. They're another tribe. We don't fuck with them. I don't know why they're after you either, because no one bothered to show me that part of the script. I'm Angelica Houston.
True.
Do you remember me from the Addams Family movie? No, you don't, because you're a child. Moving on. Anyway,
She's great. For the record, still the best Morticia.
Anyway, don't go after them. Follow the rules. That's the end of the discussion. And she proceeds to not do those things. And in this world, once that got out, there should have been a bounty on her head, and there wasn't. But hey, don't let, consistency get in the way of a stupid story. So then we move on to the Continental. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but the Continentals, all of them, are supposed to be an off-limit zone. Everybody abides by this rule because everybody agrees this is what this world needs. And if it happens, it is absolutely an outlier. If this happens, there is a huge problem, and it will be dealt with the furious wrath of God.
Yeah.
In here, everyone breaks the rule with aplomb. Now, you might say to yourself, but Mark, they shoot those people later in the scene where she says, but I've done nothing wrong. I'm a modern woman. Don't you understand? And they go, and then that's fine. But in the world they created, if you broke this very important rule, there were deeper repercussions than we just shoot you. Also, everyone should have been afraid to break that rule. It's really important. But the rules of this world no longer matter in this movie. That's why it sucks, Lily. That's why it sucks, people. The rules of this world don't matter anymore. If the people writing this movie don't care about the rules, why should I?
Yeah, look, the entire reason we get to Parabellum, so John Wick 3, is because at the end of John Wick 2, John Wick breaks that rule and shoots a guy in the Continental. He gets excommunicated, and then everybody and their dog is after him because the governing forces of this world say he must die. He must pay for his sins, and we will compensate you handsomely if you do it. And the entirety of chapter 3 is him trying to deal with that. And here we push that button to no consequence whatsoever for the narrative at all.
This is important. I look, Damn You Hollywood isn't just two old fuckers bitching about movies. I swear it isn't. It is a podcast about writing. It is a podcast about the importance of consistent writing when it comes to filmmaking. That's what we talk about. So if you just like this movie, it's because you didn't notice there were problems with the story. I've been a victim of that. I've absolutely done. Robert has called me out on it, and I go, haha, have fun with these things. I don't care. Okay, well, in this particular case, this was so egregious. Even I, who was usually forgiving of such things, was like, fuck this movie. So anyway, so after the stupidity at the Continental, where we've now completely destroyed any degree of
immersion,
she goes to the cabin from Evil Dead, and he's got a supply shop full of guns, and of course the bad guys find her there because she was chipped as a child, I assume.
What we have here is, look, this was some writing note when this was being written. Where are we going to subvert the audience's expectations? Well, when we do the arm up scene, we'll have them be attacked, and we will have her not gain an arsenal. That's it.
Yeah. So anyway, so we have our fight scene, and this is
the one with all the grenades.
Okay. I remembered why this stuck out to me. So this is the part of the movie where all of my anger subsided. This is the part of the movie, and I'm going to say something to you, and I'm willing to fight you on this. I have asthma, 2 bouts of cancer, I'm overweight, and I will still fight you, Black Belt, over this bit. This is how important this is to me. This was the most this is when the movie became the most unintentionally funniest comedy I've seen this year.
This bordered on Bugs Bunny.
This was funnier than G20. G20 wasn't funny. That's all of you taking all the piss out of that movie because you don't like what they did for all the reasons we've already talked about. I am not that people.
Mark,
I am my people.
you laughed at G22 and you know it.
I did not. I was bored by G20. This
Laughter would have helped.
this, however, I was. This was at the point where me and my son were hooting in the theater and hollering and elbowing each other and pointing and laughing. She goes after the enemy at hand at this bunker with just throwing grenades hither and yon.
Yeah, throwing explosives around the arsenal, the armory. This can't possibly go wrong.
This was like a Yosemite Sam Daffy Duck-esque thing where every other minute something is exploding and the characters are standing there all in black with their hair puffed out, going
blinking slowly, like with all black face, and they blink slowly and their eyes come back.
Yes, with a sign that says like "Oh no" or "Help me." Like it was that level of silly, and I couldn't contain my laughter anymore. And here's the problem: this movie isn't a comedy. When I say Hot Frosty was the best movie of 2024 because it was everything that movie was supposed to be, it's because it was. When I say Ballerina is on my worst list of this year, it's because everything this movie was supposed to be, it wasn't. This isn't. Final Destination dropping a piano on a child was hilarious.
Yes, it was.
That's what it was supposed to be. It's a horror movie that leans into Looney Tunes-esque violence. Ballerina is supposed to be grounded in some degree of gritty realism.
Well, hang
this
on.
wasn't.
Let me push back on that just a hair.
Well, you can redefine it. Those are the words I chose, and maybe there are better words. But you know
there
what I'm
are because a bulletproof suit jacket is not gritty realism, but
worked for the Kingpin
in a comic book movie.
Go on.
But what your point there being, this universe does have a tone, does have an aesthetic, does have some rules. And while there is some out there technology, again, the bulletproof suits, they do have limits. And there's a reason that the most derided scene in probably the entire 4 John Wick movies, certainly by you and I think by everyone else, is the scene where John Wick gets shot off the roof.
Yeah, that's when the John Wick movies lost me, but John Wick 4 is so good I got over it.
Well, that's because I think they all learned, okay, that's over the line. We're too far over the line. John Wick 4 doesn't do that. It has the funniness of him being kicked down the stairs. But falling down all those stairs is not the same as falling off of a 5-story building and hitting the fire escape on the way down.
Yeah, as you pass Black Widow who had fallen from orbit. I never get over that.
Neither will. Again, it's stupid. So the grenade fest is too far on the wrong side of Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And John Wick has to. There's a stylization to the John Wick stuff,
of which this movie is utterly absent.
Mostly, yes. One scene I will disagree with you on, even though I didn't like it. I felt that it's the only action scene that I felt fit in the John Wick universe. Even though, again, I didn't like the scene, but when they do have the dueling flamethrowers.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's a John Wick scene.
Yeah.
The rest is generic at this point.
Yes.
But when you go too far over the Looney Tunes side of things, you lose everyone because a big chunk of this franchise is predicated on, I'm not going to say realism because that's the wrong word, but the believable constraints it is placed upon itself.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Which includes if you get shot or stabbed, there's consequences to that. John Wick in the final duel with Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen stabs him in the hand before that because he doesn't want to deal with John Wick shooting with his dominant hand.
Yeah. So if you're like, I don't understand what guys are getting, if you're doing so my dad does this all the time. My dad's like, this was not a believable movie, and it's like, Dad, it's fucking Deadpool. Because he's now taking every movie has to exist in real life, or it doesn't make any sense to him. He's gotten to that point in his old age. I'm not doing that here. I'm taking this is the world of John Wick as been told to me in 4 movies, and saying this movie doesn't fit.
4 movies and a bad TV show.
Yeah, I didn't watch The Continental. In any case, to move this on. So then we get to the part of the movie where I was laughing so hard, I couldn't get back into the movie again. She drives up to the town in Hot Fuzz. And I pointed this out to Jonas because we were talking about because he was wondering why I was laughing so much. And it was like, here's this town, this snowy town in Europe, and everybody here is an assassin and has a gun, including the children. I've seen this before. This is the end of Hot Fuzz, where the entire town is in on the gag that they're all like cultists and assassins and whatnot. And they're all trying to kill what's his face?
Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Thank you, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
And James Bond himself, Timothy Dalton, in a glorious role.
Yes.
Operates from the command center that is the supermarket.
There's a point at which she's fighting.
Hot Fuzz is so good.
When she's fighting, I think I laughed. I think the hardest I laughed at this was when the coffee girl turned out to be an assassin too, because they all
like, I'm not going to hurt you, and then it's the knife fights.
Yeah,
like that. What that needed to be was the knife wielding barista isn't good at this and takes the swipe because she's supposed to, and then immediately gets like headbutted into unconsciousness.
Well, what's hilarious is that. Do you remember Robert Winfree? The night Vince McMahon was laid up in the hospital, and Mick Foley, trying to warm his way to Vince McMahon's cold, cold heart, read him.
Hi, Vince. I'm Mr. Socko.
Read him stories and did a sock puppet show, and Vince McMahon shooed.
You know
Mick Foley from the room. And he said, Nurse, I need things. I need medication.
I need morphine, and I need you to touch me inappropriately because I'm Vince McMahon.
And Steve Austin said, I got your meds right here. And Vince McMahon, oh no! And hit him with a bedpan. And
Austin beats the crap out of him for a minute, then dinks him in the head with a bedpan.
And the bedpan sound was everyone's favorite thing for the next year.
Okay, 2 stories about that from behind the scenes that have to be said. One, the bad sock puppet was an idea pitched to Mick by Al Snow. Mick Foley then did not share any of the revenue he generated from Mr. Socko with Al Snow. Austin with the bedpan. They knew they were going to do this. He knew that was going to be the capstone for the event, like for the physicality.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're rehearsing, so all the rehearsing's going on in the room. In the hallway is Stone Cold with the bedpan, dinking himself in the head, trying to find the right spot on the bedpan for the right noise. Nice. Because he's a professional, damn it. And he found it.
There's an even better doink sound in their fight in the coffee shop. It's fucking great, and I laughed hard at it. And that's what it reminded me of. So enough of that silliness. So after the entire town from Hot Fuzz attacks Anna de Armas, and she wins all those fights because she's hardcore and she can take them all on. Let's fast forward to where the movie completely lost me. To where I finally said, fuck this movie. I can't even enjoy it for its silliness anymore. This is too stupid, and everyone who worked on this should be ashamed of themselves. She's driven to betray her tribe and everything she's learned and put herself at risk with the possibility of
igniting a
assassins.
Igniting a war with this one group of assassins that's like the weird cousin we don't talk about.
Because never mind the fact the story sucks. That her entire motivation is years ago, well after she's been traumatized and trained, and this should have been out of her system by now. But she's like, hey, I remembered I had a dad once, and he was killed, and you people killed him, so I will have revenge. You killed my father, prepare to die. Fine, I accept you. This is a terrible story, but I've seen worse, so I'll go along with this. But then she says, "Ha! Because this is Chinatown. Here is your sister. She's also your mother and your sister. No, here is your sister, your long lost sister who you've been separated from."
I swear, the next time you bring up Chinatown, I'm gonna bring up the two Jakes just to watch your head explode.
And they get 2 seconds into a conversation, at which point Gabriel Byrne loses his patience for no good reason. You have to understand, this woman has torn apart this town, which is supposed to be snowy and quiet and a place for these people to just kind of coexist, in between missions. She stopped her rampage at this point. She's no longer rampaging. She's talking. They are talking together. This is known. This isn't like we didn't know she was talking, so we fired missiles into the high tower. Everyone knows the rampage is over. The monster has ceased monstering. She's talking to her sister, who's trying to explain to her, let me kind of walk you through the last 10 years of history here, because you seem a little upset. And Gabriel Byrne says, no, I am evil, and I am impatient, and I am half a retard. Kill everybody. And here's the thing. He doesn't just say kill Anna de Armas. No.
Kill them both.
Kill my daughter, who did nothing wrong, who really did nothing wrong. She isn't just a modern woman. Do not kill her too, because she's there and in the way. And I went, did anyone bother to read the script before they started shooting it?
He makes that order because the plot demands it. Because whoever wrote this got to that moment in the script. Here's these two separated sisters. And they've got different points of view. And one of them is actually kind of on the side of the cult because she's deeply indoctrinated, but it's kind of making a point. Like, look, we're not all that different. Oh, you think you chose your life? You could have been here and learned to be a killer, or hear me out.
Their conversation is bad telenovela. Continue.
Very, but let me make a point.
Yeah, no, I just needed to say that.
Okay, you're not wrong there. And she's like, well, no, but I chose to become a Ruscaroma. And you're a killer back in your hometown where you were born, where you were going to be trained to be a killer. Tomato, tomato. Like, what's the difference here? And here you are rampaging through this place. And really, like, where's your moral high ground? And somebody who was writing this got to this moment with these two characters and realized, I don't have an answer. I, as the writer, have no answer for the questions and the moral dilemma being posed. I got nothing. What can I do to write myself out of this problem? Well, I could go back and try to fix a few things. Hang on.
I can execute Order 66.
I can go back and I can rework big chunks of the script. I can characterize Eve McCarroll differently, make her a little bit better, make her a little bit more of a wild, loose cannon.
Hang on.
Make it so she has to have an arc. Hang on.
Wait a second. There's an easy fix. Gabriel Byrne's talking to Angelica Houston, and Angelica Houston says she's dead to us. Do what you want. And then he says, kill Anna de Armas. And in the ensuing killing, the other sister gets caught in the crossfire.
That would also work very well. But this writer, who does not know what they're doing, realizes they're in the corner. And rather than try to go back and rework things, just goes, we have an evil character. He can literally blow up the dam. And I can avoid having to write anything else about this. So they blow up the dam and the city floods.
So that's the point at which the movie was so bad, I can't even laugh at it anymore. Because I could handle the silly Looney Tunes humor. I can handle her being an idiot. What I couldn't handle was this level of bad writing. And at that point, I just wanted the movie to be over. But there was one thing they hadn't done yet, Robert. There was one sin they hadn't committed. There was one wrong they hadn't done. They at least, up to this point, had made it her movie. By God, Anna de Armas, as bad a movie as this is, it was still her movie. And they didn't even have the courage to do that. They lost faith, like a Vince McMahon wrestling storyline. Lost faith 2/3 of the way through this movie and went, fuck, no one's going to believe this. No one's going to want this. No one's going to see this. Call in the big gun, and out walked Brock John Wick Lesnar.
To win Money in the Bank that year instead of Ali.
Yeah. And then it becomes his movie. And here's the thing. In the first act of this movie, you said you're never going to be in a fight you can win man to man, so you must cheat, you must do all kinds of things in order to win. So the proper storytelling technique would have been to do something to John Wick to even the odds, or do something to John Wick in order to gain an advantage on him and put him in a position where he has to now confront his own morals in order to survive. She uses her speed, he falls off a cliff, and he's hanging there, and, I will rescue you if you promise not to kill me. And he's like, well, at least wait till midnight, but, save me, dear woman. And she will use her strength and pull this large man off a cliff. Something along those lines. I don't care how bad it is. It would have been better than what they did. No, instead, they send Rey Mysterio after Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar beats the living piss out of Rey Mysterio and basically says, stop doing this. I'm going to end up killing you by accident. Please stop. And she doesn't stop because she sees the reason in what he's saying. She stops because she's so beat to piss she can't continue anymore. She loses the last man standing match with fucking John Wick. This becomes his movie by the end of this. You realize that, right? It is at this point, this is now a John Wick movie. And I said, that's it. I've had it. You don't even have faith in your own movie anymore. That's how bad this is.
Let me throw the following out there as a way to potentially have fixed this. Okay.
So you don't disagree with me then?
Moderately, but not enough to make it a point of contention.
Fine.
I agree with you that there's two things I actually did like about this. One, I was worried we were going to do the thing that they always do these days with the female replacing the male lead, and she just beats him at everything.
Well, that also would have been unacceptable. He's the Baba Yaga, for fuck's sake.
I'm aware, so congratulations. You avoided that landmine. You hit this other one, but we'll get to that in a second.
You avoided a landmine and walked off a cliff is what you did.
So her appeal to him at the end is just, I need to finish this, which makes no sense. It means nothing.
I will finish what I start.
Unless you're like deeply autistic, that's not really a motivating factor. She needed to be able to make a better case.
Yeah.
Because if she makes a...
Well, then you have to write a beefier script than what they got here. They don't have enough. I know what you're saying, but go on.
But like what needed to happen here is she's fighting him. She's losing because
the irony of every time we don't like a movie, our shows are exponentially longer.
I'm aware.
It's like when we both don't like something, we don't shut up. Go on.
So during this fight, like she needs to be the emotional child.
Right.
And he needs to be the one like smacking her down repeatedly, which he kind of is.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is her character's not written to be as wild and emotional and out of control as she needs to be in that scene.
Right.
And then the last bit needs to be her finally realizing, okay, I can't beat you.
Oh my God, this is Civil War all over again.
Little bit, yeah. And she then needs to find she needs to make her case to him that let me finish this. Here's why. And there has to be something there to the why that reaches into the mind and soul of John Wick and makes him go, I will give you the 25 minutes until midnight. And we don't have it. It's not here. And consequently, it falls apart.
There was no reason for John Wick to have taken mercy on her. None. They don't have that kind of relationship. He's not that kind of guy. Again, we mischaracterize the characters of professional assassins.
This makes almost as little sense as Deadshot, played by Will Smith, not shooting Harley Quinn in the first Suicide movie when told, here's your giant payday. You will get out of prison. You will get to go, like, I will fund your daughter through college and for the rest of her life. Shoot Harley Quinn. And this heartless mercenary goes, okay, she's dead. And then because we like Margot Robbie and Harley Quinn as a character, he chooses not to.
Yeah.
Plot armor, not writing.
So then, by that point, I just needed this movie to be fucking over. And they do the dueling flamethrowers, and that's a fun visual, and I just don't care at this point. I'm so mentally exhausted by everything this movie has done to me at this point in itself. And then it's finally over. She kills the Emperor. John Wick spares her, and
He should have shot her, man. He really should have.
and it's not clear. Well, yeah, I guess at the very end of this thing, there's it's a bounty on her head from the cult she just murdered everybody in.
Well, she didn't. Hang on. She didn't kill all of them. She killed a lot.
No,
of
I
them.
don't care, Robert. My point is, she should have been excommunicated from the Ruska Day, Ruska Do, Ruska High.
Again, you're not that relationship between you and your tribe is different than your relationship to like the table and the Continental in that world.
Either way, they did more to John Wick.
Oh yeah,
she should have been a wanted woman the moment she went against Angelica Houston, and there's no consequences for that.
yep.
She's paying. They set her up against Bobby Heenan's Monster Factory, the Heenan family, by the end of this, where now she has to continue to fight this stupid cult that made no sense to begin with.
And the Dungeon of Doom will show up next week.
Yeah, and Ballerina too. People are like, boy, they're making a lot of wrestling references tonight. That's how bad this movie is. In order for me to get through it, I have to relate it to pro wrestling. Anyway, this movie sucks. Your thoughts?